Here's a story of what happened in the 1960s. As we built up to that historic moment when America changed its laws and broke down these de jure, exclusions, Americans by and large, including white Americans, were largely in support of that civil rights legislation. They felt it was time. They were ready for it. We'd spent decades building toward this expanded sense of we. And then the minute that those passed, I mean, literally, it's scary how quickly you can see this in the survey data. When the Johnson administration began implementing integration and doing things that actually meant making good on the promise of that legislation, white Americans instantly said, not in my backyard. And so what that says to me is that you can't actually legislate morality, right? Like you can't just sort of change the laws and expect that underneath it hearts will have changed, if that makes sense. And so I do think that to an extent, um, yeah, and the other part of the story is that the white backlash that we saw in the 70s was not new. There was a huge, white backlash after Reconstruction. And so for Black Americans, it's like this story keeps like replaying over and over again. We make progress, and then white Americans say, oh no, we're going to take that away because we're not ready to share the pie, right? And so I think, again, how do we get to a situation where it's not just white Americans holding all the cards and circling the wagons, right? How do we get to a place where we're working towards a we that everybody's at that table? And this is not something that has some easy, glib solution. I mean, we're not sitting here saying, like, oh, we can solve this tomorrow. This is a really difficult project to create a mass multicultural democracy. No one in the world has ever achieved this yet. But I believe that we can do it. I think if we learn from our history what we got right and what we got wrong, and recognize that we have fundamentally not done the moral work of racial reconciliation, if we can start it there, we might have some hope of getting somewhere. And I really think that this, the verdict that came down today in the George Floyd trial is a strong indicator that we are finally getting there. And let's just hope that this is the very first piece in a shift that's going to actually begin to change the hearts that need to be underneath the legislation and the programs that change.